All right, well, what's going on there, folks? Welcome back here. It is the Earthmaster on this Sunday, end of the weekend, June 2nd, 2024. Oh, about 11:23 a.m. here, California time. Latest activity here on the Earthquake 3D globe shows some movement with a 1.8 into the Alaska area. California did see some earthquake activity overnight, kind of ramping things up out here on a broad scale. Range of earthquakes up and down the state. Of course, we kind of chatted about this earthquake activity here around the Hayward Fault yesterday. Still seeing some movement here overnight, specifically on the northern segment here of the Hayward Fault. Coming up on, let's see, what do we got here? At least about almost 10 earthquakes or so. A couple more after midnight. Looks like we had 4 more, including a 2.5. And some other earthquakes in there. Also, we're getting a little bit of swarming down south now. This just off the Hayward Fault, but kind of where it branches into one another to the Calaveras Fault. A little separate swarming going on down here with a 3.4 and a 2.4. If you look at the overall scale of things out here, elevated movement up and down the state of California right now. Even some activity up into the Lake Almanor area. 3.3, 2.3. A lot of this from about 3 to 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning. We've seen a pretty big uptick in earthquake activity across the majority of the state. Even some movement stirring up down here outside of Long Valley supervolcano. They did see a 3-pointer coming in there as well. A little bit of spotty activity here on the creeping segment of the San Andreas Fault. As we work our way down south here, seeing some movement down in the Los Angeles area as well with a 3.4, roughly about 9 o'clock or so this morning. That earthquake looks like it's just off of the this Raymond Fault. There's quite a few fault systems that run through California all over the place. It's like a spider web complex of faults down there. I'm sure folks did feel this earthquake. Even though it's a 3-pointer, right underneath a large populated area will definitely trigger some responses out here. There is the Did You Feel It reports, and quite a few folks reported feeling that earthquake, Los Angeles area. And we do even have a little bit of activity down here on the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault with what looks like maybe a little bit of swarming here around the Ocotillo Wells area this is from today. So a majority of it looks like it's from today. So we got things stirring up out here across California. I put up the earthquake watch here on the live stream because of the elevated earthquake movement out here across the West Coast in the last couple days. It's not just only in one specific area, but it's on a broader scale out here across the California region. And of course, many fault systems, including the Hayward Fault there, like we chatted about yesterday, are well overdue for a large earthquake. So that's not the only fault. There's many other faults up and down the state here, including the plate boundary itself, the San Andreas Fault, that is well overdue along the southern segment. So with all this increasing elevated earthquake activity, we'll keep an eye here on the California area today. Not just Southern California, but in general, California. Let me pull up the 2.5 map here and above, see what else we got. There's some movement down south here of the area. That just confirms my suspicion of a broader scale of things and not just limited to one certain area. Even south here, just off the plate boundary as you go down into Baja California, seeing some 3s last night. It looks like that activity may have triggered the movement up north that we're seeing here today. A lot of times we'll watch this earthquake activity stir up in the Gulf and then work its way up through the plate boundary here on the West Coast. So things are definitely popping out here today, it looks like. There's a closer look here at the Bay Area. 2.5 is going to be the latest one, at least above the 2.5 level near Los Banos. That's inland, off of the plate boundary, But as you can see there's a couple of those earthquakes stirring up out here around the bay and just off the Hayward Fault here. This one here near Antioch, 2.5 inland. So yeah, definitely got a little bit of activity stirring up out here today, folks. We'll definitely keep an eye on it. Haven't really seen any. Let's see if we've seen any large scale adjustment out here today. Looks like a 5-pointer in the Indonesia Islands area. Got some movement in Taiwan stirring up once again, although that's from yesterday. So we really haven't seen any large scale movement that would tell me that we're going to relieve stress out here or temporarily pause the elevated earthquake movement out here in California. A lot of times we'll see large-scale earthquake activity here in the western Pacific, and that will cease all the earthquake activity that's ramping up out here as far as elevated movement goes. But I haven't seen that, so we still got to keep an eye here on the West Coast until we get some further action over here across the western areas of the Pacific Plate. All right, back here to the States. Got all this movement up and down the area, inland as well. You know, obviously that's a response to the stress out here against the plate boundary. Up into the north, Mount Shasta or Mount St. Helens seen a little bit of earthquake activity out here from yesterday and today. They've been seeing a swarm of earthquakes here underneath this area, coming up on about 100 earthquakes in the last 30 days, specifically right there at Mount St. Helens. And most of the activity is consistent around 5 to 6 kilometers or so below the surface, which would put it down where the magma would be recharging here across this volcano. Nothing big, but obviously, you know, we've seen a swarm here last year, lasted for a couple months, died off through the wintertime. Looks like it's starting to kick back up here as we head into summer. So we'll continue to keep an eye on this. It's, you know, obviously not a big deal yet, but it could be a sign of things recharging below the area. Let me check out the USGS map here in terms of what's going on. I mean, I don't think their gas emission stations are working yet. Haven't really looked around for anything. Well, I am at the wrong volcano here. I'm just so used to clicking on the Kilauea volcano out here. I wanted to check out, we'll check out Kilauea here in a little bit. We'll check out Mount St. Helens here real quick with this earthquake swarm that I'm chatting about. And see, the gas emission stations are not working, and I'm not for sure why. They're being met for the need for timely best science. Well, right now they've been offline for a little bit, so I'm going to have to check in and see if they can get this working, or if there's another station around the area that's monitoring any type of volcanic gases around there, around Mount St. Helens. Nothing going on there at that seismograph station. Looks like it's offline. This one here is working. This is wind, but also you can see some earthquake activity out there in the noise from that wind, creating that static, it looks like, on the graph. But there's a handful of earthquakes, as you can see, these little spikes here. And it looks a little bit more active here in the last 24 hours than what it did the previous day. So things are stirring up. I think we got a little bit more earthquake activity they need to add onto the map in the last 24 hours, because they're only showing about 6, and I can count way more than 6 just probably in the first couple lines here. So earthquake's going to be in this fashion here, these spikes. So yeah, we definitely got a little bit more than what's showing up on the map. If anyone knows any other gas stations out here, well, not fuel, but gas emissions to monitor the volcano there, let me know. Send me an email or write it in the comments. I'm kind of curious to see why we're not getting any data coming in there from that area. Let me check out the GPS statements up here, see if there's anything of concern. Probably not. I mean, this is way down there far as the earthquake depth. Still going down, it looks like, the overall trend. Was a little bit up here recently. Some of these are old and not monitored. 2014, that does absolutely no good. 2024 here on the southern flank. So we'll keep an eye on it. Gotta see if I can get a hold of someone there that has some information that can get these monitoring stations here to monitor the gas levels. Because last year, when we seen that earthquake swarm, we had some decent elevated SO2 emissions stirring up. It peaked up for a little bit and then it died down, but that's a key indicator of watching what's going on below the surface. Not only earthquake activity, but the release of gases there from the volcano. All right, back to Kilauea Volcano here on the big island of Hawaii. Looks like minimal earthquake activity out here. The volcano is currently not erupting, but I'm sure we're getting close. The deformation data here shows that we're still on the uptick here. I'm really surprised that we didn't come back down from this area. Most of the time here, now this little uptick is looking similar to this pattern right here. Got a little stationary and then back up again. So should continue inflationary today before a little deflationary or stationary event takes place here, probably by tonight maybe, and then followed up by a day or two of deflationary, stationary, and then back up again. This has just been an ongoing ordeal with this stair-stepping type of event. Last time it got to a certain level, I mean, we're past that now, but it seems as though when we get to a certain level, we're going to see either an eruption there across the summit or upper east rift zone, or we're going to see a magma displacement pop off somewhere and get rid of the inflation. Like last time, we've seen this drop there in February. This was our, we're doing that same thing, stair-stepping ladder event like what we're seeing right now. And then all that magma got displaced from the summit off to the southwest rift zone and even further, I believe. And we've seen all that huge volume of magma displace, and now we've been doing the same thing, and we're at the highest level we've seen here, even prior to this displacement, and even prior since 2018. Since the 2018 eruption, we're at our highest level of inflation here. So obviously something's going on, needs to be watched pretty closely. Earthquake activity is not all that rampant out here. Yes, there is a little bit of movement around the Kilauea volcano, but nothing of concern at the moment. West here, Mauna Kea, 3.4. This is pretty deep, though, 35 kilometers deep here. It has to do with the weight of the Hawaii Islands on the Pacific plate itself. Typical movement down here in the deeper areas of Pahala, underneath the Pahala area. Let's get back here to the States. Texas area swarming like crazy. That's a good sign of some stress building out here against the North American plate. A lot of it coming from the west here. Notice we are starting to get some earthquake activity as expected up here across the eastern portion of the country. This earthquake came in yesterday. I didn't get a chance to do a late night update. Got in kind of late. I was tired last night, so had to go to bed. But we were chatting about watching for some earthquake movement up here across this area of the country, and it does look like it came in with a 1.8 in the area of New Jersey. This is that region that's seen that earthquake activity over the last couple months here. Also, Ohio seen some movement last night as well with another 2.2. I think they've seen a handful of earthquakes out here, or at least 3 in the last week or so. Last day, it looks like. So movement, pressure, definitely great out here across the North American plate. Continue to keep an eye on the source of it all. That's going to be California out here. Can only handle so much, right? Again, this is not just a little regional stress pattern. This is a broad scale stress event going on out here across specifically this area. Looks like about the Cascadia subduction zone south, and that's a little bit elevated there, folks. All right, let's see what else we got. Alaska, we did see some movement way up north into the Arctic Ocean last night at 4.3. Kind of an odd one. Don't see too much earthquake activity out here. A little bit further south at 4.9 into Canada. It's a little odd one as well. So something going on, some movement going on up here way up north of us. That is still obviously, the North American plate. But it does look like things are starting to stir up out here across the area. This may be just not limited to California. It may be something going on here with the entire North American continent. We'll have to keep an eye on that. Alaska's seen some elevated earthquake activity as well. 3.3 from this morning. A couple other earthquakes out here in the last 24 hours. Further to the west here, things are a little bit quieter out here now. I know there's still some earthquake activity, but a lot of this is from yesterday. Remember, we have been seeing a lot of earthquake movement up and down the plate boundary over here and around Taiwan southward. A lot of activity from yesterday. So if we look at the earthquake 3D globe here, you can see some older rings across the Tonga area southward. New Zealand still looking quite active with a little bit of swarming down here just off the North Island coast and some movement south here along the plate boundary. So this area is trying to catch up, it looks like, with all the adjustment that it's seen in the area, but I still think we need to watch New Zealand for some further movement. A lot of older red rings here across this area, New Guinea area into Taiwan. Newer activity in the white color rings. It looks like we do have a 4.7 right about here around the Mariana Trench, although that one looks pretty shallow, fairly shallow here, 3 kilometers deep. Oh, take that back here. 33 kilometers deep for that 4.7. A handful of deeper quakes throughout the area. A lot of older movement here across this area of the world as well. I'm going to bring this down a little bit because earlier this morning, for some reason, this earthquake 3D globe decided to go like that and only show the last 12 hours of earthquake activity, and I didn't even touch it. So it's got a mind of its own somehow. So I had to make a little adjustment on it to keep it about 24 hours of data here on the globe. 3.3 coming into Alaska right now. One of the latest earthquakes there. So yeah, I mean, it's just a lot going on here today, folks. When things start moving around, that's the time to be prepared. A lot of folks have that theory that all this earthquake activity is just relieving stress in California, and these little ones help relieve the big ones. Not necessarily. Where did I see that? I can't remember if I covered that yesterday, but there's statements on how one area of the fault could see, like a little bit of earthquake swarming, which would intensify the stress on another portion of the fault, which makes sense, right? It just doesn't disappear as far as the stress out here across the plate boundary or any fault system. So with all of this earthquake activity occurring up and down the state, it's obviously not just limited to a little area. It's a broader scale of things, and the little swarms going on, some locked areas out here. That's putting the pressure on many different fault systems out here up and down the state for some potential larger movement. If you didn't get a chance to watch my Hayward update video, go check it out. Still up on the channel. We kind of chatted about how this area is overdue. The average intervals here of earthquakes on the Hayward Fault runs about 140 years, and we're past that. That was back in 1868. So, there's definitely a lot going on, a lot of stress going on out here across California right now. And the best thing to do is be prepared. And for now, all we can do is watch it and report back on it. Let's check out Iceland real quick here. See if we got any views today. I know the weather's been a little on the crazy side, but doesn't look like that's the case today. We've got a clear view here of the ongoing eruption. Live from Iceland.is/webcams is the site to check it out here. Let's see what this cam looks like. This thing has died down tremendously, it looks like, which is expected, right? It can only stay full blast for so long because the volume of magma here is now depleting below the surface. And that's why we're seeing that just fountaining here to, it looks like 2 main crater vents here. And that could continue for who knows how long. Our last eruption here lasted for almost about 2 months. Then it died off, and then during that whole time it was recharging. So it'd be interesting to see how this eruption plays out compared to previous eruptions here. Definitely an interesting scenario of many different possibilities here. Let's see here. There is... All right, let's check this one out. This is near Grindavik, north. I think it's just north of there. There's our, our eruption or our inflation going up there. We've seen that spike a little bit right before the eruption took place, and then now we're going down. And it still looks like we're going down. So that could be a little bit different signal compared to our last eruption right there, where we've seen it drop, obviously, but continue to inflate. So we'll see how this works out. But notice this is when the eruption took place here, our current eruption. We're going back down. So we're depleting everything underneath this area compared to last time where we've seen it kind of continue to still go up. A little bit of down and then further up while we were erupting. So super complex activity going on here. Let me see if they got any update going on from the Icelandic Met Office. Make sure microphone's on, recording. Goodness. No, a couple days ago was the last update here, so we'll wait for one tomorrow. All right, space weather activity. Really haven't seen anything major since yesterday's long duration, kind of an X flare. I mean, we did peak out in the X flare category, dropped a little bit, and then a large M flare came in, and that potentially had an eruptive component with it, meaning that a CME may have been produced, but we'll have to look for the forecasts here, which will probably come out tomorrow. Right now, there's nothing in the forecast here in terms of any elevated aurora activity coming in the future here. Let's take a look here. 3697, the culprit of this most recent crazy space weather solar flare activity. Still seeing quite a bit of these different colors intermixing here in the center core, and that's a sign that it's remaining complex. It does seem to be producing an X flare like every 2 or 3 days or so, or at least some elevated activity. So we'll continue to watch that. Of course, if you guys, I don't think anyone's forgot, but this is that former sunspot that was out here last time around the sun. Same sunspot, 3664, just renamed. That produced all those X flares and CME activity and all the historic aurora events there back in May. Once in a lifetime deal. Will we see that happen again? Who knows? Good possibility if we can get multiple CMEs headed this way again, or maybe just a huge major one with a bullseye shot here at Earth, then it may kick up again. So this is the area to watch right now for some stronger flaring. Couple of these other sunspots here. There's a separation in that core, separation here. This one right here looks like it may be starting to amplify a little bit. This area has just degraded over the last few days. And far as what's coming around the eastern limb, that one does not look super promising. But let's take a look here at the far side of the sun and see if there's anything of noteworthy value. That's still the older map. Wait, that's the newer one right here. So Earth-facing side of the sun, there's 3664 or 3697, which it's called now. There's a pretty decent, massive sunspot here on the far side of the sun. It'll be visible. Today's the 2nd, so this is already a day behind. Probably in the next few days or so, we'll get a glimpse of what's going on with this sunspot. And that is former sunspot number 3683. So it looks like that one's still holding steady And again, we'll get a glimpse of it once it is a little bit closer here to the eastern limb of the sun, which will be back over here in a few days or so. But for right now, I think we need to watch 3697 as it's looking directly at us. Anything that blasts off here will be almost certainly geo-effective. All right, no major roars in the forecast, but we'll continue to keep an eye on that. Overall, flare threat still remains elevated. 99% chance for C flare, M flare at 75, X flare 35% chance. So things are still quite elevated out here. As far as the severe weather goes on this planet, up in the northern plains, actually covering almost the entire plains out here today, northern, central, and southern. Tornado risk as well. Main threat looks like it's going to be some wind and hail out here for this Sunday. So while everyone's at home enjoying time with their family, you've got to be prepared for weather out here, because that looks like it could be a little serious day for some hail and wind. There is a tornado threat, 5% zone and a large 2% area as well that folks need to be advised of. For tomorrow, start of the work week out here, Monday, severe weather shifts back down to the south here with a 2% chance, wind and some hail in there as well. After that, it does look like things may chill out a little bit. Just general thunderstorm activity out here across a good portion of the country. We'll continue to keep an eye on things, folks. Make sure you guys subscribe while you're here. Still getting quite a bit of movement here in Texas. Keep an eye on California. I have issued the earthquake watch out here due to this elevated earthquake activity taking place. Stay alert and be prepared. We'll catch you guys back out here a little bit later on this afternoon.